This is Robert Reagan reading Please Come True. The sun rose slowly over the trees, taking its place on day shift. The night before had seen the Earth Angel drowning everything, the happiness and sorrow. In Tim's dream were visions of shot glasses being slammed down empty on a table. When the makeup was smeared around her eyes and lips, she stumbled across the floor, pushing guys away on her way out the smoky bar. When the door shut, the loud music was behind this tormented girl. Pulling off her spiked heels, she stumbled towards home. How she ended up the subject of Tim's sleep, only his subconscious mind knows. But in his dreams, she could fly, soaring, soaring, passing through clouds that seemed like moving through thick fog, only to end up in the clear blue. He met her in that sky, floating close to the morning sun, finding it didn't burn but only warmed them from the cold. With the hem of her long skirt raising up her legs, her shiny jet black hair blew in the wind spread out around her head. Everything started by seeing her night alone. The smeared makeup was worse with the hangover. The night before was tragic, but then in the air, Tim found that he could make her day. Starting with cryptic riddles, she said love is in a dark room. It breathes forsaken. She says, can't you feel the roses bloom, the sperm fertilize the egg? No, Tim says, I can't feel any of that. It's life, she says. I'm alive. I'm living again. Tim's thoughts drift away, remembering fireworks from the 4th of July when he was a child. Further above them, somewhere near heaven, the sky darkened. Falling this darkness took everything. Is it night shift again already, she says. The moon's not going to be happy with this. Something cracked in the night air, bringing an explosion of colors scattered out and raining down. For what seemed like eternity, they hung on to each other in the night sky, looking up even further at these fireworks. He felt this overwhelming love feeling come over him. Tim had felt it wide awake, but never this intense. The sun came back from its break, shining to light everything once more. That's funny, Tim says. I was just thinking about fireworks and they happened. Think of something else, she says. See if it happens. A bolt of sharp lightning crossed his mind, striking down from the sky, bright as it struck the ground. Whoa, this is cool, said Tim, closing his eyes tight. When he opened them, her smile was glowing, looking up at a winking, smiley face. Next, he made the sun grow eyes and a mouth. Then he made it sing, I can see clearly now. His subconscious damsel threw her head back in laughter. The wind had died down. Only a light breeze blew by them. Looking down, Tim feels his heart drop. Where it landed on earth, he'd never know. In the reality in this dream, his heart was right with him, beating fast because he's both scared and fallen in love. Even though he was safe floating in the sky. Regaining his composure, Tim says, check this out, before closing his eyes tight again. Opening them, he has this shocked expression, seeing her blue eyes searching for his latest special effect. What's wrong, she asked. It didn't work that time, he said. She asked him, why not? Tim says, you didn't take off your clothes and let them fall back to earth. Funny, she says, smiling as she punches him in the shoulder. The clouds drift near them, soon leaving Tim and his dream love separated in this smoky fog that covers and blacks out the sun, who had just finished its performance earlier. Tim couldn't see her through the clouds. An eternal pessimist, he figured she'd be gone when the sun cleared again. He figured she'd be gone when the sky cleared again. But when they passed, brightening the day back up, she was right there, only now she had straight, bright red hair with a butterfly clip, matching the yellow sundress she was now wearing. In both hands she held a stack of photographs. Speaking out in a soft voice, she said, "We'll meet again someday if you don't find something real first." A 10-year-old girl on Earth, wide awake, was outside riding her bike. Looking up, she could see Tim and this beauty, floating in the sky near the sun. They looked like tiny stick people. Everyone said this little girl was crazy. It was odd to see people from someone else's dream in real life, but it was happening to her. Back in the sky, Tim's surreal world. Back in the sky, in Tim's surreal world, his new death in the making blew him kisses, proving she too could make the day. Floating red lips landed on his cheek. "You'll feel better," she said, before flinging these pictures everywhere, disappearing as they scattered about in front of Tim, drifting slowly. Reaching out, he grabbed one, then woke up in his bed, holding a picture of him and this gorgeous young woman. Before he knew it, Tim woke up again, this time with nothing in his hands. He'd seen her before in his dreams, and this longing out of control filled him with this sadness. If it had been a nightmare with him covered in different species of spiders or someone chasing him with a chainsaw, then waking up would have been a relief. Instead, these waking hours took his fantasy love away again. Would she ever come true? Would he ever run into her in the real world? Tim would go to the sky or sea, anywhere to be with her. It was Tuesday morning, meaning he had to go to a group therapy session. It was cool, but it didn't help him. All they did was watch a video about something crazy, then discuss it with their blonde counselor, Bladen. In this group was a young woman named Ashlyn. She wore her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Ashlyn wasn't as breathtaking as the unknown woman from his dream, but there was something about her eyes. The first time she walked in the group and sat down at the table, Tim got this instant infatuation with Ashlyn. Thinking, we're both crazy, hey, it could work out. Instead, she was married and had kids. Ashlyn, even though she was only in her mid-20s, was the group's domestic supermom, always giving tips on how she ran her home, as well as giving out recipes. Her home was not always a happy one, however, with her husband never satisfied no matter what she did. Tim accepted this and still looked forward to seeing Ashlyn every Tuesday, even if she kept wearing that North Carolina Tar Heels hoodie every time. After this dream, Tim wasn't himself. Stumbling into the conference room, he didn't speak, but went straight to his seat. In class were the usual lunatics. Then a young man walked in late. He was confident and handsome, wearing jeans and a t-shirt with brown Timberland work boots. Tim looked at Ashlyn, checking her reaction to this guy. He was pleased when she seemed not to notice. The day's video was about being aggressive, passive-aggressive, and assertive. During the passive aggression portion of the video, this new guy named Steven says, "That's just like my wife." He says, "She's such a sarcastic bitch, and that's what makes me aggressive." For the first time, Ashlyn's eyes rest on him. Speaking up, she says, "My husband is the exact same way." For the next 15 minutes, it was Steven and Ashlyn trading war stories about their marriages. Her eyes started to glow more with each of his revelations. Is that what it took to get this married woman another married man? Feeling less than nothing, Tim blocked this out. He could handle this the passive way and tell Ashlyn, "It's good you found a new friend." Being passive aggressive, he could say, "It's good you found a new friend, but what's your husband going to think about it?" If he were more assertive, Tim would have approached Ashlyn and said, "I've liked you for a long time, but didn't say anything because you were married. It bothers me that you're showing Steven so much attention." If Tim said that, he'd sound like a hating, jealous little bitch. He was, but hey, they didn't have to know that. Passive and passive-aggressive sounded stupid too. So when Tim seen them talking outside, he handled it with plain old aggression. Walking up to them, he said, "You two are supposed to be married to other people, so why does it look like you're about to go fuck?" "It's none of your fucking business," Steven said. Tim pushed him. Yelling, Ashley says, "Tim, what's wrong with you?" The sound of her saying his name stopped him in his tracks. He didn't think Ashlyn even knew his name. Stuck and standing there wide open, Tim took a punch in the face from Steven that laid him out. With what he'd said, and now this, Tim really looked like a hating, jealous little bitch. He never went back to group. Tim went on with his life, lonely, needing someone so bad it hurt. It was a long time before he dreamed again at all, and when he did, it was a horrible nightmare. Standing by an apple tree, he picks one and takes a huge bite. Tim was chewing when a huge rattlesnake slithered quickly down the tree, which now held a variety of different fruits. With its rattler out of control, it raised its head, yelling, "Don't eat that!" Looking down at the apple in his hand, Tim sees it's filled with worms, some of them squirming, bit in two. Throwing the apple, he starts to gag and spit. A young woman steps out of the bushes, covering herself with fig leaves. "What are you doing here?" she says. "She's up there, waiting for you." Behind them, a man who looks straight out the slaughterhouse, wearing a bloody white apron, cranks a chainsaw. He chases Tim through the woods, staying right on his heels, before Tim runs through this huge web. Behind him, the buzzing of the saw stops. Then the sting and burning sensation takes over his body. Looking down, he was covered in different spiders. Biting him repeatedly were tarantulas, black widows, and brown recluse, along with other spiders. After Tim managed to knock all of them off, he found himself sick and weak from all the different venom mixed together and traveling through his veins. Laying there, he faded in his death dream. His soul, transparent, rose slowly from his body, levitating into the night sky, somewhere near the moon, working its shift. The moon grew eyes and a mouth as Tim floated alongside it. Speaking, it said, "She should be here at any moment." Tim waited all night for her, with strong wind chilling his bones and blood. He'd never known such sadness before. Sunlight came, but she never did. A black dragon covered in scales, with its wings spread wide, came near. With smoke coming from its nostrils, it started breathing flames hotter than the sun. Tim soared down in his escape, ending up on a busy street where he finally saw his dream damsel. With her hair bright red, she held hands walking beside a guy in a long black coat with all black contacts. Turning his head, he and Tim looked at each other. Staring into those dark black eyes, Tim felt chills come over him when this guy flashed his evil smile. They walked on and Tim stood there with every part of him dead. A voice called for him to wake up, wake up. Opening his eyes, she was there, sitting on the edge of his bed. Reaching out, she took his hand. "Don't worry, I'm here now," she said, before her ghost presence again disappeared. Folding upright in bed, tears filled his eyes. Tim had lost her again. For the rest of his life, he waited for her to come back to his dreams. For the rest of his life, he waited for her to come true. Thank you. That was Robert Reagan reading Please Come True.